This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello and welcome to episode 44 of Cooking with Grief, your apocalyptic log for travellers to find in the dim and distant future. I'm Chris, and as ever I'm joined on this glorious odyssey into the weird world of wonderful facts by my co-host Chris.
Hello, I'm your co-pilot.
How are you?
I'm alright. You know, times are hard, but I had a sausage butty for breakfast.
Oh, nice.
Made with Richmond sausages. You less keen on Richmond?
Less keen, yeah, I don't really go for the Richmond. I find they just feel a bit too smooth. I like a good Cumberland sausage.
What, coiled, ready to strike like a cobra?
Like a cobra. Cumberland sausages. The apex predator of sausages. I feel like now's a good time to let people know that we are available for adverts.
Weird, confusing, contradictory adverts. So, pretty good.
Small talk out the way. Quick rundown of the podcast in case this is your first ever time joining us. Each of us have brought two strange facts. Hopefully they'll surprise and interest you, and share them with each other for the first time. And so without further ado, over to you for your first fact.
Okay, so for my first topic, I'll start off with a question, as I pretty much always do. Chris, what are the top 3 things you associate with pirates?
I'd say ships.
Good start.
Eye patches and Jolly Rogers.
What if I said the word Baba Ganoush?
Bless you.
No reason. I just think it's a funny word.
Isn't that I'm sure I've eaten baba ganoush.
It's like aubergine dip.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's like Middle Eastern and
it's
Greek
like Turkish. Yeah.
Genuinely
Genuinely unrelated to the topic of pirates.
usually.
And
I just wanted to say it.
Yeah, I just like the word. So instead, I will tell you about a woman called Zhang Shi, who was born in 1775 in Guangzhou, who would go on to become...
Which I assume is in China?
It is, yeah, in southern China. Mm-hmm. And she would go on to become a businesswoman, a casino owner, a brothel owner, but more pertinently to this topic, the most successful pirate in history.
Oh, pray tell.
No word on whether she liked Baba Ganoush or not.
I'm sure she would if she had it.
Yeah, she'd be like, this is alright. But in Chinese. Her early life, she was a prostitute on a floating brothel in Guangzhou, which...
Essentially, you said, like, early life, born on a brothel. Terrible and awful. Floating brothel somehow makes it a little bit more whimsical and less horrific.
Like, it was a boat, not like it wasn't one of those sky brothels. in case I needed to clarify. But in 1801, she married a pirate captain called Cheng Yi. And together, she sort of brought sort of her business nous along with his pirating ways. And they formed a contract to have 50-50 control over his pirates, adopted a son together, and made an alliance of rivaling pirate fleets into one massive pirate army, essentially sort of consolidating all the sort of competing pirate crews in the south of China.
So a bit like when Disney bought Fox, just pirated.
Yes, yeah. And by 1804, their army was 70,000 pirates strong, which is...
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot of eye patches.
That's a lot of booty.
Yes. In November 1807, Cheng Yi died, and Zhang Shi took total control of this sort of renegade pirate kingdom and tried to run it like a business. So instead of just being your classic pirates, tried to make it a bit more legitimate. So they'd raid towns for, like, you know, supplies and stuff, but then towns could pay essentially taxes for protection, so that you've got all these coastal towns sort of in league with the pirates.
Wait, is this protection like, you know, like a protection racket, like extortion racket?
Yeah.
Did they actually provide real protection?
Well, it's protection like in the same way that the mob is.
Okay, yeah. I'll protect you from what I'll do to you if you don't see me to protect you.
Yeah. It's the bullies and lunch money. And despite numerous attempts on her life, like evaded capture, eventually the Chinese government, which was still the imperial dynasty at that point offered her amnesty, like basically just like stop fucking with our stuff, and we'll, you know, and you can run a legitimate business. And one of the things she did was, like, one of the stipulations was that all of her lieutenants become get official ranks in the Qing dynasty's Imperial Navy.
Oh, not bad.
Which is a good little good fine print thing. And they're like, oh, shit, we forgot to mention that. As she turned a sort of rabble-rousing group into a legitimate army, she introduced new rules, some of which were pretty harsh.
Such as?
If you disobeyed orders, you were beheaded on the spot.
That is harsh.
That is a zero-tolerance policy on no raiding on villages that had paved the protection money, obviously. And all booty was to be inspected in public so that there wasn't any accusations of corruption. Given that it was the wild seas, I was going to say the Wild West then, but it was neither. You know what I mean? It's a ungoverned place. You know, women didn't normally have a lot of agency, but she, I think, because of her experiences, so she changed the rules on what happened to women when they were taken as captives.
Why? How?
Well, you know, before you can imagine, you know, them being sold off into slavery or assaulted and then killed. A pirate could take a captive as a wife, but would have to be faithful to her. So he couldn't just, you know, have a series of concubines or whatever. If none of the pirates wanted to take them as a wife, they were released, and as a consequence, many of them chose to join with her army instead of go back to the life they had. So she sort of swelled the ranks with women pirates, and anyone found to assault captives were put to death. So, I mean, not to defend her too much, because obviously she was in charge of an army and killed lots of people, but you know what I mean? Like, for the time.
I mean, she cared about the prisoners, like, not enough to not make them prisoners in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah, like, some small mercies is better than no mercy whatsoever. In 1808, the Chinese government launched a big-scale sort of naval battle to try and capture her. They lost that battle, and she got control of a Royal Navy fleet, which is a good win.
Oh, yeah.
So now she can sort of populate part of that because, you know, she'd already sort of seeded the ranks of the Navy with her own people. So the Chinese can't do anything to stop her at this point. Although it started to turn against her when she made an enemy of the British Navy and the Portuguese Navy, who are obviously big players in the area. In 1809, she captured a British ship called the Marquis of Ely and took a officer of the East India Company called Richard Glasspool as a prisoner, which is sort of the wrong company to mess with.
Yeah.
So sort of now that she's messing with Portugal and Britain, the Portuguese Navy launched 3 big battles on behalf of the Chinese government to take her out, and even though she had control of a big pirate army, the Portuguese Navy was sort of the top dog in the world.
Yeah.
After a series of battles where they lost, in 1810, she surrendered to the Portuguese Navy and handed over to the Chinese. But she managed to get away, not with a death penalty, but essentially getting amnesty. She got to keep 120 ships, and
that's still a lot.
All the sort of riches she garnered during her pirate career.
So basically, she got to retire.
Yeah, basically, it's sort of like, right, don't cause us any more trouble, start up a legitimate business, and, you know, no more will be said about it, which is a pretty good outcome. So she settled in 1822. She settled in Macau, opened casinos and brothels, and went into the salt trade with her sort of remaining ships, and basically lived out life as a legitimate business owner until her death of natural causes in 1844. Okay, so that's the end of my first topic. Chris, what have you got for your first one?
I'm going to be returning to some of our well-trod waters, but for once it's not ancient Greece or modern China. Remember way back when we talked about patriotic dolphins and, you know, the Ukrainian spy dolphins?
Yes.
And we've covered Cold War shenanigans and, you know, other attempts at co-opting basically to make Aquaman a reality and co-opt the underwater animal kingdom into spying. This didn't stop with the Cold War, and America is still working on it, but they've got a new technique now of, again, real-life Aquamaning the oceans. As I say, back in, it was one of our early episodes, wasn't it? We talked about how dolphins were used by the Russians, the Americans, as spies. You stick a camera or microphone on them and send them off, and then obviously with them being very intelligent, you can train them to swim somewhere and come back later, that type of thing. Or use them for, I was going to say for diffusing mines. They're terrible at diffusing mines because they can't they can't hold the scissors, but they can mark out where
Yeah, you just got to jam a pair of pliers in the blowhole. Now
they've decided that instead of doing that, which is obviously quite a sort of direct way of using sea creatures, they're basically going to spy on sea creatures and then indirectly use that to spy on other countries. And if that sounds mad, then you're clearly not mad enough to work for DARPA, the US Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, who have too much money and too much time and just enough imagination. So, for example, do you know grouper fish? Goliath grouper? Those, they're massive, aren't they? Look like tuna-y type things. They're huge. Apparently, when you swim up to one of them, they make a big booming sound. And so, the idea is, you have a load of, underwater microphones around, and you listen, really sensitive, and you listen for groupers going boom, and then if you hear a load of, especially if you hear them getting closer to boom, 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 that's something swimming towards you.
Well, listening for thunder during a storm.
Essentially. And then puts thunder that is sort of set off by, they say by divers. I assume it's not I assume evolution didn't equip them for one very specific situation of if a creature that doesn't live in the sea swims near you, make this noise.
It's sort of geolocation through gupperfish.
Yeah, basically, if the grouper's making a load of booming noises, you can, something's going on over there. You pick up that, and then you can go investigate and see if it's some diver trying to swim into your Navy base or whatever.
Or it could be Basil Brush.
They've got some other ones as well, so apparently, sea bass dive deep when they're startled. So again, you monitor the sea bass. Instead of trying to, because obviously people spend a lot of money, governments spend a lot of money making their submarines and stuff as stealthy as possible. So if you can't detect it directly, if you know that the sea bass have all suddenly started swimming and diving to the bottom, that means they're all startled by something. Could be a shark, but it might mean that there's an enemy submarine on the horizon, stuff like that.
Are fleeing sea bass more accurate than, say, I don't know, radar?
I heard somewhere one of the ways that, because apparently submarines and stuff, you've got sonar, don't you? As the sort of main detection. You ping a sound out and wait for the echo to come back. But apparently modern submarines are so stealthy that one of the things they've had to do is they actually now listen for bits that are unnaturally quiet.
Oh, I see, right, yeah.
It's got to a point where they're so good at absorbing the sounds and, not sending back an echo.
Yeah, where they're actually quieter than the ambient noises of the ocean.
Yeah. So that's become the only way you can detect them now, is try and find the gaps in the ocean rather than...
It's like jazz. It's all about the notes that they don't play.
Exactly. And so Dr. Helen Bailey, research associate professor at University of Maryland, says that there's no reason why an army, and this is a quote, there's no reason why an army of black sea bass couldn't provide a cost-effective warning system against enemy submarines.
No reason. Absolutely no reason.
No reason. Going back to sonar, apparently there's these things called snapping shrimp, which click their claws.
Again, like in jazz.
In jazz, apparently they're continuously snapping that, and that, again, works like a sonar. So the idea is, instead of, you can just listen to that very closely and build a map, just listen to the echoes of them. So instead of having to do your own sonar systems, you basically just listen to the shrimps.
Ironically, again, it could be a shark, or it could be the gang, the sharks, clicking their fingers in time in West Side Story.
West Side Story reference. Yeah, basically exactly like West Side Story. It can be used to find jets or sharks. Oh man, I didn't see this. Honestly, when I started this topic, West Side Story was not an avenue I was expecting to go down.
No, it's like the Spanish Inquisition. No one expects West Side Story, except people who go to pay to see West Side Story.
And then the other one, which apparently people actually have known for quite a while, is plankton stuff. You got the ones that like light up when they're disturbed. Mm-hmm. So you just look for those at night, and if you see a load of glowing patches, you know something's a boat or something's gone through there, and you can see it. So that one's fairly straightforward. Less interesting than jazz shrimp.
Most things are less interesting than jazz shrimp.
That is true. Jazz shrimp. Okay, and on that note, Chris, over to you for your second topic.
Chris, what are the top 3 things you associate with vampires?
Ships. Booty. No. I'm going to say...
what if I said the word baba ganoush?
Yeah, no. Vampires, I'd say garlic, steaks, which just sounds like a dinner, and sunlight.
And tiramisu. Yeah, all classic vampiric tropes. Mm-hmm. Would you be surprised if I added armadillos into the mix?
I'd be just as surprised as baba ganoush.
Well, this time I'm not just saying silly words for the sake of it. In the 1931 film adaptation of Dracula, in the shots that established like the inside of Dracula's castle, mm-hmm. they filmed lots and lots of footage of roaming armadillos.
Why?
They were used a lot in filmmaking in the 1920s and 30s because not many people knew about them because they're sort of elusive nocturnal creatures and they hadn't really been shown on film before, and they're only native to a small part of the US. So most people.
So they were going to show them in Transylvania, up a mountain.
Well, they were just used as generic creepy and demonic creatures because they don't look that natural. So they look like if you wanted, to show something that hadn't been shown before. In the same way that like if you had no idea what a penguin was, and then you saw a penguin, you might thought it was some small man. Like some small human abomination. Yeah. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe I'm being unfair on penguins.
I mean,
again.
Everybody bloody loves penguins. I bloody love penguins.
I know. I like him too. I don't know why I picked such an adorable target. But like, you can at least see that if someone had never heard of, let alone seen an armadillo, that you could. It's a weird creature. Mm-hmm. And it was such a common association with horror. They became such a trope of the horror film genre that a lot of people thought them to be mythical, like the Sphinx or the Salmon Monster Munch or the Good Tory.
Ooh, political.
And from the 20s and 30s, when more and more people are travelling because of the increasingly widespread availability to automobiles, there's lots of reports of people crashing because they freaked out when they saw armadilli, or armadillos if you prefer. So obviously they're native to the southwest, so that's what, like Arizona, New Mexico, and at night people are driving along in sort of middle of nowhere on dirt tracks, and then what they think is a mythical demon creature scuttles across the road and then wanders off into the night. You can imagine people being freaked out in the same way that if, I don't know, I'm driving to yours via, I don't know, Didsbury, and I see a chupacabra.
That would be quite freaky.
I feel that would make, to say the least, startled. But yeah, so the armadillo was once a nightmarish creature of horror. As a bonus fact, in the 1931 version, Dracula also kept a pet bee, which had its own very teeny tiny bee coffin.
Bee coffin?
Like a coffin for a bee.
That's like a matchbox.
Yeah, but made to look like a coffin.
Wow.
So
that's ridiculous. Bees don't need coffins.
No, they make honey tombs.
Hey.
What if you had never seen it before or never seen it described? What do you think would be the freakiest animal?
If you're a Roman back in the day, and then you go down to the Colosseum and there's a goddamn elephant there. Like,
Yeah,
it's like
and it's bigger than anything you've ever seen.
Yeah, 4-ton grey-skinned beast that can pick things up with its nose.
Yeah, and it's got blades coming out of its mouth.
Yeah, you'd be like, you just wouldn't know what to think, would you? You'd be like, how is this real?
See, I thought when I knew I was going to ask you this of a giraffe, similar sort of thing. Because to see it, you might think, oh my god, someone tried to hang a horse, its neck stretched, and it survived. This is awful. And to see them slapping each other with their giant necks.
Well, it's like I've seen it somewhere pointed out that it's really not that unreasonable for people to have thought that unicorns existed when giraffes do. Yeah, just a horse with a horn on its head just isn't that weird compared to a lot of the things that actually do exist.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you've seen a regular horse. Imagine that with a horn. Okay, that seems fair enough. But yeah, nature is scary. Or can be. And none more fearsome or demonic than the humble armadillo. So that's the end of my second and final topic. Chris, why don't you round us out with our fourth and your final one?
Speaking of animals and freakiness and stuff, I'm going to talk to you about evolution. What would you think humanity's next evolution or whatever could or should be?
I want wings.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or a tail. Maybe a nice prehensile tail.
Once you can pick stuff up with it.
Yeah, just to hold snacks. Hands free.
No, it's the dream.
Yeah.
Can't really argue with that.
Or you can be in bed, lying on your back. You have your tail holding your phone, so you can actually comfortably watch stuff lying down again.
Oh, yeah.
Although, would your tail get tired? I suppose it would.
Probably.
What are you after?
Well, no, just saying these are all the type of things, people think maybe humans would evolve to be smarter, or stronger, faster, whatever. But it turns out that the quote here is, a pointless rare knee bone makes evolutionary comeback in humans.
Woohoo, guys, we nailed it!
Because the problem is the way evolution sort of is embedded in people's brain is it's sort of almost like Pokemon, every step is, superior to the one before it and so on and so forth, and evolution is just random things happen, and if you survive, your kids have it, and if you don't survive, you don't, and that goes, which is why giant pandas are basically have adapted to just live off one particular type. Evolution gave us the giant panda. It was perfectly suited to its environment. Unfortunately, it's a shitty environment where you can only eat bamboo. So what's happened is, obviously with humans, is we don't really have a lot of evolutionary pressure on us anymore. You can evolve pretty much anything, and because of the natures of modern society, it's not really going to be detrimental enough to kill you and prevent you from having offspring, which is the normal way. So this is called the fibella, and it is a small knee bone with no apparent function, which has been described as the appendix of the skeleton and is buried in the tendon behind the knee, and it can cause pain and discomfort. But apparently we're seeing it in greater and greater numbers now, because evolution discarded it, because apparently it worked as in apes it works as a sort of knee bone, and then obviously when we started standing upright and stuff, we got the kneecap on the front and we don't need that one, and it causes pain and discomfort. So back in the day, you've got pain and discomfort in your knee, you can't run, you get eaten by a lion, don't pass it to your offspring.
Yeah.
Nowadays you got pain and discomfort,
you get knee surgery.
You get a knee brace. Yeah. You get a knee brace. If it's really bad, you just have some paracetamol or something. If it's mild, you just, And like I say, there are very few situations where your life is going to depend on how fast you can run in the modern world. Oh no, I can't run very fast. Okay, I have a car. I can still go at 70 miles an hour faster than any human was ever designed to travel. Which means that people are getting it and then passing it on to their, it's appearing in people, then they'll have children, and then they'll have children, and then two people who both have it will have children together, and then, and so the genes of the genes are getting passed down generation to generation, and it's gone up from in 100 years. It used to just be 11% of the world's population had it, but now it's over 40%.
That's a lot.
So yeah, soon more than half the people in the world will have this pointless knee bone that has no evolutionary function.
It's adding another one to the list, because you think we've been quite lucky as a species to become the dominant one on planet Earth, given that there are lots of things wrong with the human body. Like, the spine, the spine is so fickle, and, like, a bit of back pain will take you out of it. We could really do with, like, you get 2 sets of teeth in your lifetime. We could do with having one that lasts 30 years or 40 years or whatever. Halfway mark, your teeth fall out and you get a new set, not in 5 years and then, the male genitals on the outside seem like a design flaw. A fun one, but a flaw nonetheless. A brain so big that we can't use our skulls properly for, like, the first few years. A brain that takes 25 years to sort of develop. There's a lot wrong.
Yeah, well, apparently our 3 big advantages are having thumbs, massively underrated.
Are they? I think people are pretty appreciative of thumbs.
I feel like people probably aren't. I feel like people... Well, listen, if you ask them...
Listeners, if you feel like you could get by without thumbs, just try doing the dishes. It's so hard to grip a slippy plate without thumbs.
Well, thumbs, exactly.
And there are other things as well, but it's mostly doing dishes.
And the other 2 things are intelligence. Yeah, it's more apparent in some people than others, but it's there. And apparently, what humans are really good at is running long distance. Like, we're not very fast. Like,
but endurance.
Usain Bolt would get chased down by, like, any sort of large predator that could eat, like a bear or lion or tiger or whatever. Like, even the fastest humans would get run down by, like, those type of creatures. But we're just very good at just keeping going. So if we're chasing, if we were chasing... there was a story, actually. So in Kenya, I think it was, and there were these cheetahs that were preying on these farmers, like, I think they were sheep or something, sheep or goats or something like that. And cheetahs kept preying on the flock, and obviously farmers weren't happy about that. But they were, I think they were Maasai tribesmen, and they just ran after these cheetahs, and obviously not a chance it can catch a cheetah. They can run like 70 miles an hour, but it would run, get absolutely knackered, have to have a break, run, get absolutely knackered, have to have a break. When meanwhile these Kenyans were just jogging after it.
Yeah,
like, I say jogging twice as fast as like you or I could like ever even hope to jog. It's like I was like, I once set my treadmill to see how fast it's like Mo Farah can do it for, like, keep it up for 2 hours, and that lasted about a minute. And I was like, dying. It's a pace he can keep going for like 2 hours.
Yeah, his jog is our sprint, essentially.
Yeah. And then they just ran after it, and, like, eventually they just caught up to the cheetah because the cheetah just couldn't run anymore. And then they caught it up and they just tied it up, and apparently they just relocated them somewhere else. Yeah,
well, it's tracking, isn't it? It's like that's how we used to track, say a buffalo or a mammoth or anything like that.
Mammoth, yeah.
And apparently that's what you're meant to do, like with house cats, is that don't try and chase after it, just walk slowly after it, and eventually it'll just lie there, and you can pick it up and take it back home. If it's your cat, obviously.
Yeah, that's good to know. I like how it's essentially the same story, but just instead of cheetah, it's house cat, and instead of running, it's walking slow. It's essentially the exact same technique.
Strolling through a council estate in Wolverhampton. I'll get you eventually.
Yeah. That's human evolution for you.
So, flawed, but not bad.
Yeah. Not bad, humans. Not bad. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Cooking with Grief. Thank you for listening. I hope you've learned something, because I certainly have. I've learned that Chris really enjoys the word Baba Ganoush. Anything from you, Chris?
No, just thank you for listening. Hope you're staying safe. Like, to the listeners, and you.
And me,
as
thank you.
As a co-host and close personal friend.
We'll try not to dwell on the event that's happening in the world right now, but...
I think the event's maybe a bit catastrophic. Let's call it the calamity.
The calamity, yep. Let's avoid talking about the calamity happening outside our doors. Yeah, no, I hope everyone's looking after themselves. Hope everyone's not gone too mad and is staying safe. And that's oddly sincere for us. So, penis. I don't know. I felt awkward. Rescue us.
No, I was going to listen to you squirm with sincerity.
Yeah. If you want a complete lack of sincerity, then please follow us on Twitter at Cooking with Grief. We have no G on cooking. Or send us an email at cookingwithgrief@gmail.com if you want to, send us anything. Also, please leave a review on iTunes, because we could really do with some,
New
fame.
ones.
Yeah, that one too. So we'll see you next time in 2 weeks, as long as the world's still here.
As long as the world's A, still here, and B, has demand for sort of fact-based podcasts from...
I don't think whether or not there's a demand is a defining factor. There's a supply. I don't know if there's a demand.
Look, we'll print it out on CD and leave it on your doorstep, if that's easier.
Goodbye.
That was sudden.
It's your turn to say goodbye. We both say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Don't do it. Don't go for a third one.
Other than that, I was going to hit stop.
Oh. Bye.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's a Nerd
And Nerdette
from the Voice of Misery podcast. If you want a show that's about pretty much anything, it's a variety show about life, love, mental health, the pursuit of happiness, and a ton of different interviews going from Karen Parsons to Ava Devine and other various adult film stars to just random people on the street that I think are interesting. You should give us a shot. Voices of Misery podcast. Voicesofmisery.podbean.com, at Voices of Misery on Twitter, and Voices of Misery anywhere you can find your favorite podcast. Give us a shot if you're not easily offended.